It's now time for Remember When with Uncle John. John Guess, Ouachita County's resident storyteller and local historian. Sit back now and enjoy a walk down memory lane as John recalls the days of yesteryear in his own unique way. You never know, some of it might even be true. So here's Uncle John, along with his trusty sidekick, Kelly Blair.
Back on Remember When with Uncle John. Well, here we are at Hump Day, and around here at these parts, that means it is Wrestling Wednesday on the Remember When with Uncle John show. Which grappler you want to talk about here today, John?
We're going to talk about the birthday boy.
Birthday boy.
Actually, he's been passed away for several years, but, you know, we talk about a lot of people on here that neither one of us ever actually got to see.
Right.
But I saw this man dozens of times.
Oh, okay.
And I'm telling you, he lived up to everything that was ever said about him.
Okay.
Killer Karl Kox.
Well, with a name like Killer, you better make an impression.
Real name, Herbert Allen Gerwig.
I can see why he went by Killer.
Born April 26, 1931 in Nebraska, and debuted in 1956. Spent most of his career as a heel. A hated heel.
Yeah, I never knew Killer Karl had a run as a baby face or
right
a face like his. I don't think he could make it as a pretty boy.
At the end, toward the end of his career, he spent a lot of time in Australia.
Gotcha.
With Barnett's territory.
Oh yeah, the original WCW.
Right, and he come up. You know, there's a bunch of them jumped on him, and he came up with this angle that he had promised his sainted mama. On her deathbed, that he would change his ways.
Oh wow!
And he was in a faction. You know, I don't remember who all was in it. He was in a faction of several wrestlers. Well, he started abiding by the rules and not playing dirty. Well, they jumped on him and whipped him, and tore him up like they usually do.
Oh yeah.
Which created 6 months or a year's worth of matches,
And as they say, that is how the fight started.
And he ended up his career as a babyface. He retired in 1982, but the last few years was spent in this area, Mid-South.
Yep.
The
old tri-state territory.
The tri-state territory. He was a tag team partner of Junkyard Dog, a tag team partner of Buck Robley, Bill Watts,
characters.
Had a run in with the grappler. Had an angle with the grappler, Lynn Denton,
the masked man.
And yes, that had the loaded boot.
Yep.
And he would come out. He had an injury to his foot. Come out with a cane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Killer Karl Kox took it away from him and bent it over his head.
There you go.
And then he kept the cane.
Yeah.
But he was. They called him the best gimmick man in the business.
Really.
He could come up with things. They said. And, of course, they also said he was one of the great jokesters.
Mm.
One of those people that when you rode from town to town with in the car, you had to be ready for anything.
Yeah, don't fall asleep.
You had
don't
to be ready
off.
for anything. He invented what they called the Kick the Rabbit Club.
Okay.
They would have the young guys, the ones that were just breaking into business, they'd have them in the car, and they would see a rabbit on the road, and they would stop and tell them that, there was somebody had put a hex on them.
Tradition.
And the car wouldn't go any further till they kicked the rabbit.
Kick the rabbit.
So they had to run around and chase the rabbit to kick the rabbit.
Boot the bunny.
But Killer Karl Kox was a colorful individual. He taught the brain buster to Dick Murdoch. And
devastating move.
Devastating move. He was one of the proponents of the brain buster. And
now old Dickie Murdoch, he stole a bunch of stuff from Killer Karl Kox, not just the brain buster. Steal's probably a harsh word, but borrowed or carried on the tradition. But Kox used to also play on his military background, bona fide military Marine back in the day, and he would come out in full Army fatigues and playing
had the shovel and the backpack and all that,
the spade and all that kind of stuff. Well, as soon as Killer Karl Kox left the Mid-South Territory, Dick Murdoch immediately, they just plugged him in next, and he started the same routine.
But Killer Karl Kox and he had a long-running feud, but Kox was a pallbearer at his funeral.
Oh, yeah.
But, he was, if you met the guy on the street, you'd think he was a bus driver.
Wow.
But he was a double tough individual. Would give as good as he got. He ended up his working career as a guard in the prison system in Texas.
Wow.
And his saying was, they got me in here now watching y'all, and there was a time when they used to watch me.
Yep.
You know, and just a double tough individual, one of those guys, like I said, that I actually got to see several times.
Well, what about the irony that you got a guy with the initials KKK now, Killer Karl Kox, and teamed with the biggest babyface, the biggest hero, who happened to be an African-American in the Junkyard Dog, tremendously popular in the South. That's the kind of booking Bill Watts used to pull off in the Mid-South.
And that right there is what got them all rich.
There you go.
That's right.
Hey, that's going to wrap up Remember When with Uncle John here for today. But we do want to thank ProMed Ambulance Service, the Shopper's Guide, and Sherwin-Williams House Paint. Without them and their financial support, folks, this show's not possible. So we hope you'll give them thanks for us. We thank them every opportunity we can. We hope you'll join in, too. I guess we'll see you tomorrow, John.
See you tomorrow, Kelly.
You've been listening to Remember When with Uncle John on Y95. This broadcast can be heard each weekday morning at 6:45 on South Arkansas's favorite station, Y95.